The Liberals attempting to table back-to-work legislation as week 5 of the college strike comes to an end, but the NDP blocking the bill from being introduced. So what do striking staff think of this whole process? Let's get over to Tammie Sutherland. You have on standby union spokesperson JP Hornick with you. Good morning, Tammie.
Good morning, Melanie. That's right. We have JP Hornick from OPSEU here with us. First off, tell us your thoughts about the fact that back-to-work legislation was attempted yesterday and then blocked by the NDP.
I mean, I think that what we have happening here is that the council failed to make any movement in negotiations, even after being directed to by the premier and deputy premier, and so they had to step in and try and introduce this legislation. This legislation doesn't include any guidance on, what our current working conditions are. If we have an existing collective agreement, there's no return to work protocol about how to get us back into classes and salvage this semester at the direction of the colleges. This was a point that they are very adamant about. So, I'm as concerned as anyone about how this is going to play out over the next few days.
Okay, so there's no idea what students can expect in terms of trying to salvage at least the semester that has passed?
Yeah, I mean, faculty will, I'm sure, do an immense amount of work trying to do this, but, we need some direction about how we're getting back into the classrooms, not just that the colleges are reopening. I mean, we've lost 5 weeks of class. We have 5 weeks of our faculty being on the lines, our students walking with us, but, starting this back up isn't just a simple process of get back in your classroom. It's about how do you actually meet those learning outcomes.
Now, there were reports that OPSEU had asked that each member receive a $5,000 bonus for signing this contract. Is that the case?
No, that was absolutely untrue and terrible misinformation. I mean, the College Council has an independent public relations firm that is putting out incredible misinformation on this. What we had asked for in the 2 hours or 2.5 hours that the Premier gave us to find a deal was we said, let's go to status quo, the items we've agreed on, and a return to work protocol that will actually get faculty into the classrooms well. We also asked for our faculty to be reimbursed for the 2 extra weeks that Council prolonged the strike for this forced offer vote that our people rejected at 86%. 95% of our members voted and rejected this offer. Council refused to budge at all. They made 0 moves in the period of time that the Premier directed them to get creative and find a deal, and instead they continued to stonewall.
And lastly, your thoughts on the NDP blocking this legislation. We know that eventually it will pass, so to block it now is, again, delaying the return to class. Your thoughts on that?
Look, right now what the NDP is doing is actually standing up for workers. I mean, what they've told us to do is get back into the classrooms, but there's no guidance on how to do that. So imposing back-to-work legislation that has no protections for the faculty who've actually been on strike for 5 weeks. We want to be back in the classrooms, but I understand why the NDP is doing what they're doing. Absolutely.
All right, thank you very much. Again, that's JP Hornick from OPSEU. Again, that back-to-work legislation will be, of course, the topic of debate at Queen's Park starting later this afternoon. Mel, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Tammie. And later on this morning, we're going to be hearing from Deputy Premier Deb Matthews, as well as Ontario NDP leader Andrea Horwath, to get their take on how the day will go. So that's coming up a little bit later on. As well, we're following the ongoing strike at the Ontario food terminal that is still causing traffic troubles this morning. So let's take you to a live look right now along the Queensway, again near Park Lawn. And let's see, and you can see a massive lineup of trucks here trying to get into the terminal. The picketers right now delaying vehicles from entering the terminal. They've shut down one of those lanes. About 24 workers here negotiating their first contract with Ippolito Produce. On the table right now, job security, wages, and scheduling hours. So we'll continue to watch this for you. We're also going to take you to a live look at King and Bathurst, where a reminder, today is the last working day of warnings for drivers for this King Street pilot project, because next week it's time for fines and possibly demerit points. We're talking up to $110 worth of fines and possibly 2 demerit points if you break the rules. Only streetcar traffic is being allowed to travel that full length of King from Bathurst to Jarvis to speed up public transit. This is the busiest surface route for the TTC. An American news personality coming forward with sexual assault allegations against U.S. Senator Al Franken. She has now released what she says is photographic evidence of the incident. Now, this is the photo here. Leanne Tweeden alleges Senator Al Franken here, groping her as she slept. This apparently happened in 2006 when the two were on an overseas USO tour. Tweeden also alleging that Franken forcibly kissed her without her consent. The senator now coming out apologizing, saying this picture was meant to be a joke and that he doesn't remember trying to kiss her. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump is responding to the allegations in a tweet, saying the Al Franken picture is really bad, speaks 1,000 words. Where do his hands go in pictures 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 while she sleeps? Now the president is coming down hard on him, but refusing to answer questions about Republican Roy Moore, who is also facing sexual assault allegations. The White House now speaking up, saying they will not call for Moore to resign from the race, but instead allow voters to decide whether they want him in office. Many fellow Republicans have called for Moore to drop out after multiple allegations that the Senate candidate sought sexual relationships with teenagers when he was in his 30s. Moore has denied these allegations, even stormed out of a press conference, which you saw there, when asked about the claims. The House of Representatives passing a $1.5 trillion tax bill, seen as a victory for Republicans.
Is passed without objection. A motion to reconsider is laid upon the table.
Why is this important?
Now, this bill is the first major revamp of the U.S. tax code since the 80s. It affects every corner of the economy. The bill passed along strict party lines, and Trump had this to say on Twitter. Big win today in the House for GOP tax cuts and reform, 227 to 225 the vote here. Zero Dems, they want to raise taxes much higher, but not for our military. The bill would mean tax cuts on average for all income groups in 2018 and most income groups in 2027. But according to the Tax Policy Center, the biggest benefits go to those at the top. Zimbabwe's President Robert Mugabe has made his first public appearance since the country's military coup 2 days ago, when he was put under house arrest. He attended a university graduation ceremony in the capital. The 93-year-old has been in power for 37 years and is reportedly refusing the military's request for him to resign. Meanwhile, the country's political opposition is demanding a return to civilian rule.